And, obviously there will be a few large winners in this space. But I think one of the weird things is that the crypto community broadly has, like, a lot of the narrative has gotten super zero sum. And it's not zero sum at all. We are firstly like a small fraction of the world's payments. We're a small fraction of the world economy. Other than the market cap numbers, basically for Ethereum and Bitcoin, which are eye-popping, we are just not that large in terms of global flows. And we can grow so much bigger when you think about what the, total value of real economic flows and activity is and what fraction happens on a blockchain. So I think there's just plenty of room to grow significantly.
Okay, so in today's episode, we have Malesh Pai joining us. And Malesh has been one of those high quality researchers in the crypto space, always telling us interesting things about block building and order flow. And recently, he's joined Tempo. So, Tempo is this new layer one, I think. But, let's just get Malesh to tell us about it. But first of all, Malesh, I want to ask you, what is your role at Tempo?
That's a great question. So I joined Tempo, and when I joined, I signed an offer letter that had a position on it. And then we talked about it, and we said, there's like, it's a startup. We don't want people saying, this is my job, this is not my job. So we said, no positions, you just have a department. So, okay, Malesh, you're in research. Fantastic. Then they said, then Elon tweeted saying, there is no research, there's only product. And then they said, okay, Malesh, I guess you're in product now. But no, I'm in research, and I don't have a position. So that's all there is to it. What is Tempo? Tempo is a layer one blockchain. It's incubated by Stripe and Paradigm and funded by a few others over time. It's primarily like it's meant to be a general purpose, fully EVM compatible blockchain, but with our core sort of focus on being how do we optimize a blockchain for payments. So, the first paper, Satoshi's sort of white paper, was about peer-to-peer payments. And the thing we've done a lot of great things. We've done DeFi, like the three of us have all worked on DeFi and had a lot of fun doing it. Haven't really nailed the payments use case. So we want to do that, and that involves talking to people. Like payments is like 99% of payments are easy, and then it's like or on credit cards it's like 99% are easy, and it's the 1% that's actually the 1,000-page Visa handbook. So understanding what those things are, what are the real institutional constraints, and how do we do that? That's what we're trying to do.
Do you want to ask your question? I guess I'll ask you.
I already had a few questions that I chatted to Brad, so
yeah. But the first thing that comes to mind for me, if Fahad wouldn't go, is what did the other blockchains fail to do that Tempo wants to do? Because I guess you told me from the application layer in terms of payments, but what sort of, from a deeper level, what were they missing that couldn't facilitate payments as well as Tempo can now? Or Tempo wants to do?
I don't think, I don't want to cast this as a failure of a specific blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a statement of how much adoption, like how much real world flow is going through a blockchain, right? Like when I get invited to these crypto parties, like some company hosts like a poker event or something, and I get invited. I always lose money, and so you have to settle up. And I'm surrounded by all these famous names. Surrounded by one time it involved your boss and founder, Brad. We settle on Venmo most of the time. USDC on. So it's just like it's not a failure per se of the blockchain. Some of it is the complexity of not just the blockchain but everything around it, right? You think of a company that's been doing payments, and then you tell them, okay, blockchains and stablecoins are really cool and you can use them to fix a lot of your issues. And they say, okay, tell me how. And you say, first you need a wallet, and then you need an RPC, and you need an indexer because you need data, and of course you need a blockchain, and you need a stablecoin, you need an issuer, you need an orchestrator. Like, and at that point they're like, guys, this is not going to work for me. So some of it is just abstracting that complexity. Like the tech is all there. I feel like we're in this like blockchains are like at that cusp of that breakthrough, just like 90s Unix or something, where we were almost there. All the tech was beautiful, and then it just needed someone to come and put it together and get the right thing for mass adoption. Yeah.
Wait, but so can I just double click on that a bit? Uh, so, I mean, you described this situation of trying to explain to somebody what they would need if they were to use a blockchain for payments. But I think you're talking about a specific profile there, right? So, for instance, if you were just talking about a simple peer-to-peer payment, then I'm not the one who needs to, set up anything, right? I mean, I can just go use MetaMask and so on. So who are we really talking about? Because the interesting thing, when you mentioned that thing about like the
that's
poker
true.
games and so on, I've had the same experience as you. Brad has seen me have this experience where I'll go to dinner with a bunch of crypto people and I'll say, why don't I pay the bill in fiat and you all pay me in crypto? And then they all tell me that they don't like doing that. And I'm like, well, come on, how, if not in this group, I can't get crypto from people peer to peer. How would I ever get it? But in that case, it has nothing to do with like the back end type of stuff. It's like, guys, download MetaMask on your phones and let's do this now.
Yeah, no, that's true, and I think there's well, I was thinking more about like why haven't big enterprises, and you hear all like why haven't they adopted stablecoins, especially like ones who are dealing with cross-border, and you hear them complain regularly about how slow cross-border is, how many issues they have. There's a separate set of issues just about peer-to-peer payments, like just people splitting a dinner bill or something like that. And there, I mean, there it's not as much of a technological problem because you either download Venmo or you download MetaMask or Phantom, and it's like it should be doable. I think even there, it's some of it is customer education, some of it is like the user experience is not as seamless as it needs to be. So
But that's
you
fixable, right? This is the thing. This is something where I've had some very aggressive conversations with people in crypto, where I'm like, why don't you guys make the wallets much much better? I mean, it's not actually hard. So so a simple example that I like to give is that just having the ability for me to on the app specify a different asset in which I'm paying relative to what they're receiving. And really, what I was thinking was like, for instance, if a merchant has access to that sort of wallet functionality and can just spin around and show you a QR code, because the customer might be, my mom, and doesn't really want to touch this even at the level of putting in the tokens. But if you show her a QR code and she just has to scan it and that's the only thing, and on the merchant side, all they have to do is specify, the two assets. But I don't, this doesn't, I don't see this level of functionality yet even.
I haven't seen this level of functionality at wide adoption, obviously, but I've seen this level of functionality. Like, I think last year, ETHCC, there were a couple of pop-ups that had basically prototype versions of this. It's not quite, it's almost there, basically, but I can't, yeah, that's all.
Part of my point is it's not a question of whether it's doable. Like, all the tech is already there. It's just the front end to put on top of it. And
I
and
think
I've
it's
always been
more
surprised.
than
Yeah.
I think it's more than just the front end. The front end is a big part, but like you got to solve a whole bunch of issues, right? Like, let's start with like, okay, let's just say it's like your mom wanting to pay for coffee, right? She needs you like someone like if she there's first a chicken and egg problem. Like for her to pay using a QR code with her wallet, she needs USDC on her or some stable coin that the vendor accepts.
No, well, no, but so that's the point. So okay, maybe my mom is a bad example because she'll never hold any crypto of any kind. Let's say one of my students, right? So if I could, if I told my students, look, you could hold a risky asset portfolio and you don't need to have the stables. Just you want to, many of them would want to hold Ether and so on. Would just be like, well, what am I going to do with this, right? So I go tell my students, look, you can hold all the risky crypto you like. and these merchants will automatically swap it out and get paid in USDC. And so at the same time, you tell the merchants, you guys will be able to receive in stable, and you tell this, you tell the consumer side, you can hold a risky asset portfolio that has a high appreciation rate. So yes, the students would have to get risky crypto, and the merchants would have to be okay taking stables. But that I don't think is like that hard to convince people of. It's more that, for instance, if I go and tell a merchant on campus that they should do this, they'd be like, well, okay, so what's the interface that I'm going to use in order to make sure that I can receive stable against risky? And I'd
Yeah,
be,
no, I
and
think
I'd
you're
say,
I think you're almost like there are products that do this out there already, right? Like there are a whole bunch of crypto debit cards that will spend not just the stables in your account, but will have other spendable assets. So I think my former employer MetaMask has a card where you can spend, like you can keep your money in Aave, and right at the instant you spend, it'll take out the Aave and it'll withdraw from Aave and spend it for you. Um,
but why is there a debit card? Like, particularly, is this a physical card? I mean, this is
it's a
very
physical
analog,
card.
and
It's a
so,
physical
yeah.
card, and a thing. I think it's some of it has to do with like
I thought
I'm
we were getting
not a
rid of cards.
lawyer,
See, like
not a
Google
regulator, but some of
Pay.
it has to do with like if there is a money transmission step if you're doing this for a business. So who needs the license? If there's a smart contract doing it, who runs that smart contract? Do they need a license? These are the kinds of issues that probably need to get litigated for this stuff to not litigated in the like need to get resolved for these things to be like for it to work from merchant to merchant. That's like much business user to business is different than casually splitting dinner conversations, is different than Amazon paying out all its merchants on stables. Like all these three things involve money moving from point A to point B, but how regulators think about it is different. How a party, their risk and what they want to do exactly is different enough that actually there's a lot of complexity in there. And I think going back to the earlier question, one of the things that maybe we did wrong in crypto was we said, well, we have made it really easy to move money from point A to point B. The rest is all details. Someone will
Yeah.
figure it out. And no, like, there's just a lot of work to do there, and a lot of companies have been doing great work on this. A lot of companies have been building, stablecoin apps, neobanks. Tron actually has maybe more or an insane amount of retail payment adoption. Like people actually use Tron. Another friend of mine, popular, um, very famous, but I don't know if he wants to be doxxed. So went to Georgia, the country, not the state, and suddenly found that his credit cards don't work, his US dollars are no good. But the one thing he could do was if he could get money onto Tron, he could pay on Tron in Georgia. So he had to find, he had to find enough internet to get on some really funky bridge, apparently that he'd never used before, bridge some money over, and then he could spend USDT on Tron in the real world. And he was like, and this was like a year ago or maybe 2 years ago. So
Okay, but I think so. In your answer there, you touched on I think a really important point, which was the legal side of things. And in my experience, that does seem to be really really crucial here because um, when you talk about moving money from point A to point B, I mean one way to think about it in this context is we're just talking about things that are recorded on this ledger, and so the sort of the simplest way to put it is how can it be so complicated to change two numbers, right? If I'm going to send Brad whatever 5 USDC, ultimately I'm decrementing my number by 5 and incrementing his number by 5. How can this be complicated? And one answer is because there are a bunch of regulators who think that there need to be checks around this. And depending on the context, if I'm a merchant and he's a merchant, that's one context. If I'm a person, I mean, if I'm a user and he's a user, that's a different context. And if I'm a user and he's a merchant, that's a third context. But so is the primary pain point then the regulatory and legal side, or is there actually at a functional level an important distinction across those three things that you described?
I think, I mean, so firstly, like it's regulation is an issue, right? Because we have all these things like money transmitter licenses, and they exist for a reason, because previously there wasn't a ledger I could just remove from one person, and like it wasn't possible to both have self custody and a ledger on which we could all agree that, if I decrement one number and increment another number, those two things work. Like it always involved either a centralized party deciding or a money transmitter who held your money in the interim. So I understand why regulation needed to exist, and we have to work through how those regulations have to evolve, and it's happening. So that's great. But I think there's more than just regulation. I think there's like a whole collection of things, right? Like when I pay a merchant, I get like if it turns out that it wasn't me who paid the merchant, it was actually Fahad with my phone, I can turn back and tell Visa, hey, it wasn't me, it was Fahad, give me my money back. And now Visa has like this complicated book of or Mastercard for that matter. They all have these books that explain who's liable and how does the money come back out, like who owes who net. Um, we have to recreate that system. Like people, there was this lovely line I heard, which is like, we keep saying like, not your keys, not your coins, want to be your own bank. Well, if you have to be your own bank, you have to deal with your own bank robbers, right? So how do you, like, I don't think it's that easy to just say, okay, increment one number, decrement another. No, there's like a massive pile of complexity under there, which we have to sit and figure out. Like,
But wait, can I push you a little bit on that, because there's a sense in which that's back into the legal regulatory aspect, right? So meaning, okay, so you could imagine, okay, part of this is in some sense philosophical in terms of like normative in the economic context, right? Which is to say, for instance, is it sort of okay, and you can interpret this sort of as an economist, like welfare wise okay, or even like in a philosophical context, like in an ethics context, is it okay that there is this system where when Malesh's private key signs for this transfer payment, but Malesh says, wait, I didn't do that, that, it's, well, tough, okay? Your private key did correctly sign, and therefore, whether you were personally, as a person involved or not, tough. There's a world in which you might say, look, maybe from a philosophical perspective, this is okay as a system. Let's even leave the economic welfare part out. But from a philosophical perspective, this is okay. But yet the lawyers say, no, wait a minute. We have the guns, meaning, the lawyers Congress is full of lawyers. The executive branch is full of lawyers, and the executive branch controls the guns. And so we say that it's not okay. And by the way, you can take that to a further extreme. And one of the reasons I think this is important is that if we do bring in the welfare part, right, I feel like a lot of times people in the crypto community, for instance, Paradigm, where I believe you have an affiliation, or no, sorry, okay, got it. But at any rate, I think they put out a piece maybe a few months into the Trump administration, the second Trump administration, basically saying on some level that we can use economic mechanisms on chain to sort of correct some of the welfare losses. And so you could get into a place where you even have mechanisms on chain that we could, as economists, formally argue lead to welfare outcomes that are even maybe better than traditional outcomes. But yet the lawyers could still say, no, wait a minute. We don't feel comfortable with this because we have rules. We're used to doing these things, and we're not okay with you not doing these things. I don't understand your, social welfare function, blah, blah, blah. I have these rules, and you must comply with these rules.
So let me say a couple of things. So, maybe we settle on the world where your key signed, you're liable. That's fine. But there's still the issue of your key signed, you sent some money, but now you claim that you didn't get what you paid for. I asked for red shoes, you sent me black shoes. This needs to be
in the real world.
adjudicated. In the real world, yeah.
Okay.
Because we pay for stuff in the real world, right? Like there's only so many NFTs that are going to be bought. Hot take. Like most money is like we're paying for dinner. We're paying for like I'm shopping and buying something that's delivered to me 2 days later, and there's a whole he said, she said kind of issue that's even after, if even if we say, if with my keys the money is gone, there's still an issue of, I can say, well, I didn't get what I paid for. And now we need to work out, we need a system to adjudicate that, right? All of these systems have been built that work somewhat. Like you can argue about, again, you can argue about who gets the welfare benefits and who doesn't. And going back to Fahad's question, but we have a system to adjudicate this that has very few edge cases. And we have a system in crypto that can do the base case, which, the 90% happy path really, really well, but needs to build out maybe some of those edge cases. Like, and it's not all regulation. Like, I understand regulation is a bugbear, and regulation, people sometimes move slower than it should. We're all researchers and PhDs, and in research there's they say science makes progress one funeral at a time. Like, it's sort of it's like regulation takes progress. Like a paradigm has to somehow die before a new paradigm like can fully take root. So that'll take time. But I think there's just more than that. Like maybe like it might be other regulation, right? Like you don't like you don't want. Let's just say there's more edge cases than is obvious. Like, it's not all regulation. We should we have a lot of work to do ourselves as a community before we go point and saying the regulators are slowing us down. They've been really friendly over the last year, especially.
I feel like
So
this
then
is a
how?
good opportunity.
No, go
I
ahead,
was going to
Brett.
say, I think maybe if you could keep on this topic if you want, Fahad, but also I was going to propose moving into what are the technical innovations that Tempo has that solve some of these problems that you were. But I don't know,
Okay.
Fahad, do you want to continue on that trend for one more point,
No,
or?
I was going to ask a similar question. Just mainly, how does tempo move us closer to the
Okay,
goal?
so how does tempo move us closer? Let's talk about a few things. Um, so the first thing it does is it like there's just a lot of simple stuff built into the blockchain. It's not all of it is um, yeah. So here's an example. A lot of corporations tell us they can't hold Ether or Solana on their wallets. So when they can't hold Ether or Sol, they can't use the blockchain directly, right? They just
But by the way, so when you say they can't, is that a regulatory thing?
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
accounting thing. They are not comfortable. They do not like the accounting issue of holding a highly volatile asset on their thing. They are required. It's presumably regulatory, but like
Okay.
it's
Okay.
there's multiple kinds of regulation, as you know. Like there are also accounting standards. There's so many other things. So they don't want to hold, and even if they could, like some of them don't like to do it because they don't have any certainty what they're paying for, right? Like so one basic thing we did was you can just pay fees directly in stablecoins. We at the blockchain layer, it's not a translation, it's fees in stables. Which stable? We believe there'll be many stables. There's obviously the stable coins you know and love, but there's a lot more coming, and a lot of people want the flexibility to offer their own stable coin, to have the unit economics, to share it, to reward in terms of in terms of their own treasury management, or to take the yield and share it as rewards with their users. And they are so the next thing we did was we made it so that fees could be paid in any stable coin. So there's a very simple AMM that, as long as there's liquidity, every user can say, "Hey, this is the stable coin I want to pay fees in." Every validator can say, "This is the stable coin that I want to receive my fees in," and the AMM will do the conversion. So that complexity gets shoved under the carpet and
Wait,
shown to the
can I ask?
blockchain.
So it seems to me any smart contract enabled blockchain could essentially achieve this effect on the user side. I mean, I understand. For instance, like in Ethereum, ETH is used for gas, but I could hold USDC, and I click a button and it does a swap through a DEX, and now it has some ETH, and it
So
things like that.
I think this is sort of what I was alluding to about the 1990s Unix moment. Like, I'm a little older than you. I think I was, a tech nerd teenager in the 90s, and everyone was like, Unix is ready, man. And I'd like, okay, our computers just got multimedia. So that means they finally got speakers. And I'm like, how do I get my speakers to work on the on Linux? And they'd be like, yeah, it's so ready, man. All you have to do is go to this place, get this floppy drive, put the driver on it, run this shell script, and it's so ready. Right?
That's every Linux user. Everything
Yeah,
works. You
every
just gotta
Linux, right?
do this.
Yeah, do this. So every time you say to me, yes, you could do it. Of course you could do it. It's a general purpose freaking technology. It's Turing complete. Anything that you could do, you could do. But like the like think of the infrastructure that needs to be put into place to do this really simple thing of take my money, right? Like just let me use the blockchain and use it from me using money I have in my wallet rather than making me buy one more thing. That's like the fact that like the fact that like so many people got confused because they would receive a 100 USDC payout, and then when they tried to do something with it, their wallet would keep saying you don't have enough funds, and they'd be like, wait, I have 100 USDT. Fahad just paid me for dinner. And then, no, 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 you have to go get Sol. And then, yes, at some point, wallets figured it out. And, Phantom and MetaMask and all the top wallets have like gasless transactions. But you look under there, there's a lot of complexity that really should not be there. And then now they have to do it like, there's like a whole bunch of things we've sort of, so Ethereum has this notion of what's called account abstraction, right? The idea that the account should be a smart contract so that you can enable some of this functionality. And the issue with that is now everybody has their implementation, they need third parties and so on. So we just took like the top 6 use cases of this automation and made it into a new transaction format which we're calling tempo transactions, branding. But what it does is it just lets you do all these things without needing any third-party integration. So I can pay for your gas fees, Fahad, by just signing over by just adding an additional signature of mine to your transaction, and that way you don't even need we don't need we don't need the complicated sort of systems that there were for third-party gas sponsorship. We can do batching natively in transactions. So a single transaction can involve hundreds of transfers. So I can just, if I'm like, Uniswap and I want to pay everybody, I can just fire one transaction and then everybody can get paid for their monthly payroll rather than firing 200 transactions and then checking, okay, Brad's went through, Fahad's went through, this guy's went through, this person's did not go through. We can do, on chain, we can natively do things like passkeys. So you can sign your transaction directly with just your Face ID or your fingerprint or whatever. We have gas sponsorship batching. So that's like a pile of stuff that we're doing that we're calling tempo transactions. We just automate and simplify the developer experience for offering just the kind of thing that you think you as a developer want to be able to offer with your dApp, like just without needing to worry about, okay, how many other parties do I need to integrate with? That's one big feature set. Another big feature set is like we've been very like simple stuff, but we've been very purposeful about how the chain is optimized for payment. So we have a reserved payment lane. A whole bunch of gas on the block every block is reserved for payments. That means that what we deem a payment, what the blockchain deems a payment transaction, is going to be allowed to use that gas. And if even if there's like an NFT mint or something happening and the blockchain is full, people's payrolls can run on time, their fees are not affected. That's sort of just basic. Some of it is about standards. So the ERC20 standard, which we know and love, is sort of a useful token standard. But you think about it, there's a whole bunch of things that would be nice for a stablecoin issuer to have that are not in the ERC20 standard, because that was not the original intent of the ERC20 standard. So we've got a fully backward compatible standard that extends the ERC20 standard with a whole bunch of other things. So there are directly in the standard, there are functions like mint and burn that don't necessarily exist in like the spec of the ERC20. We call this TIP20, by the way, Tempo Improvement Protocol. But we have really simple things that are super important for blockchains to reconcile with enterprise backend databases. So for example, you can transfer with a memo. So every transfer can contain a little 32-byte memo so that you can say, okay, this transfer corresponds to, this thing in my internal database, or you can tie it to, universal, like a transaction identifier, a UIUD or something, so that you can say, okay, this is the travel rule information that corresponds to that payment. So a whole bunch of stuff in TIP20. Another thing we've done is like, obviously this is a stablecoin focused thing. We really want interoperability between stablecoins. So and you hear cases like this, right? So like if you want to send money using stablecoins from the US to, let's say, Latin America, in the US, it's really easy to onboard onto USDC. In Latin America, it's actually much better liquidity to go from USDT to to the local currencies. So if these things could interoperate, it would actually be everyone would just get a better payment experience. So one of the things we're doing is we have like a native stablecoin DEX. It's not a DEX designed for trading sort of volatile assets. It's a DEX for trading things that, things that basically should trade close to parity. And it's hyper optimized for that. So
When you say DEX, you mean some type of AMM or something else?
it's actually a CLOB. It's a simple CLOB. It's a CLOB implementation that's enshrined, and it's a native thing. And it's meant just for USDC to be able to trade into USDT, which sounds, I mean, I saw the sort of Twitter funny people pointing out but once you start thinking about it, like if you're going to have many stablecoins, you actually want to be able to interoperate between them. You don't want this fragmentation. So we've done a bunch of stuff in the stablecoin DEX to make sure there isn't fragmentation of liquidity. It's easy routing and it works wicked fast. So those are some of the high level like payments focused features. There's obviously a lot of performance stuff. There's a simplified version of or an early version of a multiple concurrent proposer sort of architecture built in that we think will be super useful for validators going forward. But that's sort of the high level feature set.
Can you explain more what this enshrined CLOB is? It actually reminds me, some people were saying this, it took some motivation from Hyperliquid. I don't know if that's true, the tempo idea. So it kind of, this enshrined CLOB kind of makes me think about that. I don't know if that's correct. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I don't, I mean, no, Hyperliquid is great for what Hyperliquid does, and it's but it's a perp DEX, and here it's something that's built into the protocol. I think it has a cool address, 0xDEC0000 or whatever. That's one of the nice things about having your own blockchain. You can give people cool addresses. But what are we trying to solve for, right? There's going to be, let's say, a whole bunch of stablecoins. And there's two problems. One, if there's a whole bunch of stablecoins, we want to make sure that they're all interoperable with each other. We can do this in one of two ways. Like we can come in from the top and we can say, this is the stablecoin of the blockchain. Okay. And that's one approach to do it. That's not the approach we're taking. That's just not our job. Like we're a blockchain. We're not we don't run a, we don't do stablecoin issuance. So we're not an issuer. We don't have any dogs in this fight, if you will. So what we want a system that works well, so that when I want to pay in one stablecoin and Fahad wants to receive a different stablecoin, for any reason, it should be able to route through. And there's two problems with that. One, if there are n stable coins, there are potentially n square pairs, right, between these stable coins. So, and liquidity will fragment. And then if all those n square pairs exist, then finding the cheapest route for money from my coin to Fahad's coin is actually not an easy problem. I have to check a whole bunch of routes, maybe check how things flow. So what we're doing is we're basically saying every stablecoin can declare, if it wants to be traded on this DEX, can do that. It can declare a code token. So it declares what it wants to be traded against. It has to declare one token. And when it declares that token...
Can I just clarify? When you say it declares and, it can decide... So let's say USDC. Are we saying Circle is playing a role? Or am I just like, as a USDC holder, I can do something on your...
For any particular token, the issuer of that token will have to play the role.
So it's the contract that they deploy
on Tempo. So they will have to specify this as part of their... they can specify this after deployment.
Okay, wait, so is one way to think about it that... So whoever can actually mint the asset. So like, anybody can, I presume... Actually, that's already a question, which is, can anybody deploy a smart contract to Tempo?
Yes, as of yesterday. Okay. And people already have.
Counts as a stable coin under Tempo's definition.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone can declare a you can go right now to the docs and declare your stable coin. I urge you to do that.
Well, what makes it stable coin? Like, can it just be a meme coin? Like,
what makes this is excellent. This is a great question. Anyone can claim anything.
Yeah. You just told us to make stable coins, right? So
well, I mean that's more of a meme. We have a little in the docs we have a live demo where you can create, Brad USD if you want, or Fahad USD. You can then give yourself a bunch. What any token is worth is what someone else is willing to pay for it, right? So just because you call it a stable coin doesn't mean it is a stable coin. What step one is somebody issues. So from using the TIP20 factory, they create a thing that they claim to be a stable. They can then go and issue a pair they can go and create a pair on the stablecoin DEX. Beyond that, it's the market, or if like...
But just to clarify, when you say create a pair, does that mean providing some liquidity also initially, or could I create an empty...
You could create a pair with them. So you just decide, I say I'm Malesh USD, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to link to Fahad USD. So my trade pair will be Malesh to Fahad. Okay.
But should I think of this as like, if we were talking about AMMs, I would be thinking of, for instance, something like a new address for a liquidity pool that happens to be this pair against itself. But I guess it's, in this context, like what is actually, from the perspective of the chain itself, how does the state get revised when I create a market for USD Brad versus USD Malesh?
So it creates a pair for when there's so it creates that pair. So there is now the possibility for LPs to come in, or for market makers to come in and put and trade the pair Malesh USD versus Brad USD.
But I'm saying there's a change in state to the chain somehow, right? There must be some... There's a change in the state of the chain to record the fact that there is this facility to... And I'm wondering, is this like a smart contract? Is there a smart contract?
It's a smart contract. It's an on-chain club. So all it's doing is it's creating a empty book between Malesh USD and Brad USD. And then when market makers come in, they can go and put... quotes against, they can go and put orders on that.
And the entire order book is stored on chain?
Entire order book is stored on chain. The entire order book is stored on chain. It's a fully on chain. It's not an activity where we expect there to be crazy volatility. That's why we can do it. Like, these are stable coins, right? But to go
storage,
back to the
I mean, so if you have a lot of order books on chain, like the storage could, and a lot of depth, I guess, I guess that's not a binding. That's not an important
There's a
constraint.
bunch of optimizations in there that I'd urge you to go through, but I took undergrad algorithms, and on the other hand, like Georgios is confident we can handle it. So who should we listen to, right? Like, obviously, if Georgios is happy, we're all happy. No, it's like I think the issues with clubs have always been that they are not the best way to trade volatile assets on a blockchain. But this is not a super volatile asset. The pair, this blockchain doesn't, like, for instance, the club is limited to be within, I think it's 2%. So the only price ticks are within 2% of parity.
That's how you enforce
Wait, hold on. No,
stability.
but hold on. So, okay, there's two lines of question that I had when you said if there's a rule that says that you cannot basically provide liquidity within 2%, then if essentially the price, like the real
No, no,
world
no.
price, in some sense goes outside of that, then you just have an empty book or a
Yeah, then you have an
one-sided
empty
book,
book,
right?
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or when I mint a meme coin,
I mean,
that
yeah.
isn't a stable coin. It just doesn't trade on this DEX because it immediately goes out of range, right?
Yeah, sure. So
Yeah.
basically, it's kind of like saying we will only permit trades in this range, but in principle, what could happen is that the range is basically inconsistent with the fair value, and so you have no liquidity on one side of the market.
If you're trading outside 2%, like, that's not a stable coin. I mean, that's way
No,
outside.
sure. Okay,
Yeah,
fair. Okay,
yeah. I mean, it's a stable coin optimized DEX. We made very specific choices to make it work well for stables, and that means doing things that won't work well for trading risky assets. But that's fine. Like, there will be other trading venues on Tempo that are not native, and and all the major DEXs and AMMs are welcome to set up shop, and things can trade there.
No, so just to clarify, what I actually was trying to just clarify there was like, so you're talking about a technical constraint, but it doesn't change the economics, and that was my point. So essentially, the economic fair value could violate that range, but as you said, then basically people are sort of mislabeling this thing, and as a consequence, there won't be any trading through this thing because the 2% is going to make it so that on the market itself on the chain will basically be one-sided, and you won't be able to trade the
That's
other side.
exactly right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, put differently, we don't want to be in the business of litigating. You are a stable coin, you are not a stable coin. The market
Right.
is doing that for us. And if
Right.
you
And
if you have a good enough, like, no arbitrage or sort of limited, even like low arbitrage will say that if you are operating what is a legitimate stablecoin, it'll be able to trade just fine on the stablecoin DEX, and if you're not, it probably won't.
Right, and just one other thing in what you were saying, which is a slightly different point, but I just want to clarify for my understanding. So the difficulty of CLOBs on chain in most contexts, beyond what you said, I thought was also the fact that for if you have a lot of nodes and you have a lot of data storage owing to all that information for the limit order book, particularly at all points in time across all blocks that keep on increasing and so on, that was also now in your case though. What does the network topology look like for
The
the
network
validated
topology
nodes?
is a tree. So we enforce that the network topology is a tree, which
Yeah.
means that from any node to any other node. So if Malesh is connected to Brad, then and I mean, as long as Fahad is trading somewhere in this, there is a unique path from Malesh to Fahad. That's a nice property of trees. So there's no routing issue.
But here we're talking about validators or all users, like anybody who's participating in the network in any capacity. So write access. I'm talking about write access.
Right access to what? So
So the ability to write to the chain.
The right
Is
ability to
there-
write to the chain is like it's a permissionless chain. Any transaction writes to the chain.
Okay, so you can have as many nodes as possible, or you can. There's no bound on the number of nodes who can write to the chain.
Sorry, we're conflating three things here. So let's step back. We were talking about the tree structure of the DEX, right? And that is the only person who gets to decide for each coin. The only person who gets to decide what it trades against is the issuer of that coin.
Okay.
Okay. The next thing is, so users can come in and provide liquidity on the pairs that exist. So the issuers define a topology of trades. You can take any pair you like and provide liquidity on that pair. That's permissionless. As long as you have those coins, you can go and you have, tempo access is public right now. You can just go and do that. What were your sorry? Those are my answers to the questions I understood. But
Well,
there were
I was actually, so I appreciate you saying that we were explaining things, because actually my question was on a different point. So for instance, um, okay, I'll use an analogy from the Ethereum world so that we can align on this, right? So I want to provide liquidity in a particular AMM pool on Uniswap. I'm just a user, right? But for me to actually provide liquidity, I need to send my transaction to the network and PBS, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, somebody selected by the proof of stake protocol needs to have me on the block that they're signing off on. So what I was asking you about, and so and at a minimum, these are the people who are storing the chain, right? So like me as a user, I may not be storing anything, right? Or at least not much. And so it seemed to me like state growth for the validating nodes, when there's a lot of data that needs to be stored per block, and like limit order books can end up storing a lot of data, was kind of one issue with CLOBs on the usual blockchains that we think about. And so that doesn't touch on the issue of, like, I wasn't thinking specifically of the issue of the stablecoin, your first point there, or the people providing liquidity to the particular DEX that we're talking about. I was just thinking about the network of nodes that can actually write those things to the ledger and the cardinality of that system, because I'm trying to think about how many people are storing all of this information.
So again, there's like, maybe to disambiguate a couple of terms. So for first, in terms of state, there's two pieces of state, right? One is the historical sort of just history of the transactions. That grows a lot, like potentially. The second part, which also grows, is like, what is the current state? So what is the current snapshot of the order book, block by block? That is sort of bounded in some sense, because there's just there are pairs, there are stable coins. Each stable coin adds at most one pair, and therefore adds at most one book. And then that book has a finite number of ticks at which it trades, because it's plus minus 2%, I think. Like, I forget the resolution, but we're keeping it simple. So current state is a problem more generally, like state growth. Historical state is a different problem, which we do need to solve. But again, that's a easier problem, because that's just about having like massive hard drives and being able to sync from that, which we can solve. Like, it is a problem, but it's an orthogonal problem to like current state growth, which we also need to solve. Who do we need on this? Like, what is the current status of permissionlessness on this blockchain? The current status is, right now, public testnet, we have 4 validators. All 4 of them are run by us. We're doing a Byzantine fault tolerant consensus, and we have an RPC, and a lot of the we have partners, Alchemy, QuickNode, all your favorite RPC providers are there. What's next? What's next down the process is we will have start to include more third-party validators. So people who are not us will start to join. We have a private validator net, which is just about making sure that they can join the network and making sure the network is stable. So we're working through that process, and we're hoping to announce like validators starting to come on board. So by sometime early next year, we'll have a small private, we'll have a public network with a small permissioned validator set. The next step from that is to say, okay, we're going to go to permissionless validation. But that's, a few steps down the line, because we first need network stability on this permission validator set. Did I catch every piece of that, or am I still missing one?
Yes, I think you did. I appreciate you getting into the nuance of it. That was perfect. Thank you.
In terms of nuance, I actually curious if you could tell us exactly what are the problems that you focus on.
What are the problems I focus on? It's.
I realize I sound like your manager or something. Like, tell me what you've been working on in the last couple months.
What are the top 3 things you've been doing this week?
Yeah. I'm just curious, like, what type of problems you're solving. Yeah.
Yeah,
because you usually solve good problems.
Sorry, they definitely
you usually tackle like, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I have a bad people of cutting people off. Go ahead.
No, I go. You go. You. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I think, I mean, at a high level, it's research. It's more applied research than maybe what I used to do. And it's both in terms of like helping with the design of this DEX, for example, or helping with the design of we've not talked about FX, but potentially there's we need an FX market. So this stablecoin DEX will not work for the FX market, as you can imagine, because foreign currencies do fluctuate against each other. So, but you want to do something that's optimized for FX use cases. So how do we do that and make it perform well? That's there's questions around like standard, not standard, but the kinds of questions that economists have thought about, like what should validator economics look like? What should they be in a longer term? How does becoming a validator be sustainable? What should transaction fee mechanisms look like? So those are the things that I think about. But it's a startup. It's a small startup. We are growing fast, but I'm not sure we're at 50 people yet. Uh, th- you know, on any given day, it could be anything, and it often is. The other thing I've really enjoyed is just working very closely with all the partners, like getting on calls, trying to understand what are these needs that they have, like why haven't they adopted a blockchain before? And sometimes it's a very technical problem, in which case I defer to someone else. But often it's like a feature that we can build very easily into the chain, and just needs to be we need to be thoughtful about it. So things like batching are an example of like large scale users who want to do like a corporate pay, like want to do just a payout. We have to do a grant. We have a grant, and we want to do a grant disbursement to 1,000 recipients. Turns out, even on a very high performance blockchain, that's a massive pain, because you then have to go back, check which ones went through, which ones got finalized, refire the ones that didn't. Not fun.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you you know Compliance, reconciliation, privacy, refunds. It's like, just the academic community has maybe focused a lot on DeFi and MEV, and it's a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot to do here. So it's yeah. I don't necessarily know what I'm going to be doing on any given day, because there might be some fire coming up, but this is the high level scope.
So you've been talking a lot in what I describe as a functional way, in the sense of saying, look, here are pain points that have arisen in other contexts, and so we're going to address this in this way or in that way. But as an economist, of course, we're very familiar with the notion of zero adoption equilibrium that arise in systems where there are positive externalities. And so there's always going to be this equilibrium where no matter how useful what you produce is, because we're talking about payments and you need another side of the payment, that nobody uses it, and it's a sustainable equilibrium. And so I'm tempted. So kind of what I want to ask here is, what's the strategy of Tempo along those dimensions? And a little bit, I'm wondering, at the top of the conversation, we talked about business to business, business to consumer, and consumer to consumer. And these are not mutually exclusive things. You could imagine this chain being used for all of those things. But from a perspective of getting onboarding to get the adoption, it's not clear you want to be like, well, let's just encourage absolutely everybody to use this for any reason. You might want to be like, no, here's where we want to focus. So I guess, what is the strategy to actually get adoption?
Yeah, a comparative advantage is everything, basically. No, I think that's been pretty, like, we are focused on helping enterprises of various sorts get on chain. They're focused on bringing not net new dollars. And right now, we're not focused on as much on retail to retail. We have like, I mean, some of it could happen organically, and we'd love it if there was somebody vibe coded a really cool, simple payments app that allowed a stablecoin to only move between a collection of users. But yeah, that's sort of I think our strategy is basically like we have this excellent team. We have the connections of all these wonderful design partners who've jumped on board, and there's a public set of design partners who are helping us build up these chains. These involve some of the largest payment companies on the planet. These involve some of the largest like PSPs, credit cards, GSIBs. What other categories am I missing? Like actual marketplaces, AI companies that want to look forward into agentic commerce and things like that. So those are the kind of use cases we want to tackle and make sure they work first up. That's, I guess, where we are.
Can you talk a little bit about how you see the future of Tempo sort of overlapping with the future of Ethereum? So, we asked Gordon the similar question about
What did he say?
ARC.
I should have watched this podcast. It was like coming out during a really busy week.
Yeah, don't let me not tell you what he said. I don't want to influence your your comment.
I think Ethereum, like, firstly, there's this very weird, like, yes, you're right, Fahad, completely about like equilibrium effects. And, obviously there will be a few large winners in this space. But I think one of the weird things is that the crypto community broadly has, like, a lot of the narrative has gotten super zero sum. And it's not zero sum at all. We are firstly like a small fraction of the world's payments. We're a small fraction of the world economy. We're other than the market cap numbers, basically for Ethereum and Bitcoin, which are eye-popping, we are like, we're just not that large in terms of global flows. And we can grow so much bigger when you think about what the, total value of real economic flows and activity is and what fraction happens on a blockchain. So I think there's just plenty of room to grow significantly. Like if you think about it, even now, like with all the like bitter competition that there is, the market in the payments world sustains Visa, MasterCard, Amex, Discover, a whole bunch of regional players, and at different layers of the stack, it sustains Stripe, Adyen, like hundreds of companies of massive scale, employing more people, doing more stuff, and adding more value to the planet than just it's so. I just like there's a world where Tempo is super successful and Ethereum is just giga successful. Like I just literally don't understand why Tempo success it's there's just so much space to grow. Our hope is that we succeed in bringing net new dollars, net new users into the space, and I think that'll just be useful for everyone. It'll hopefully be useful for us, but I think it'll be useful for everyone.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to Gordon's answer. So, yeah, seems like the marketing team gave both of you guys the same debrief.
The deconflicting channel, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe as a final question, we're you always show up and give these great research talks at these academic conferences. Is there anything we can expect from you soon that's different from your 4-year long? Is it a 4-year long block building investigation? I can't remember how long it's been. But yeah, what's new? What's coming?
I gave a talk yesterday, but it was on block building.
Yeah, I heard it was. I was like, I know that talk. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, this was a new talk.
Okay.
Before. But yes, I think for now we will not be I will not have the bandwidth to write papers on this. I'm always happy to talk about some of these things and what I'm learning, but it's not that we wouldn't we already we open sourced all our code and all our docs, we're very much a believer in open source and contributing back to the open source community, to the research community, all of that. But there's just not there's nothing at a level of finish. Like research is it's not about being first necessarily. It's also about like good research just takes longer. So I don't have like that. I think I'll be around in the research community because I love hanging out with all of you basically. But right now the focus from the Tempo side is just to nail this product and nail this launch.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. That's it from me. Any last questions, Fahad? No.
No, this was great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thanks so much, Malesh, for
Awesome.
taking this time
Yep.
from your
Happy to
busy
be here. Lovely to
startup
see you
life.
all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so